Hello there, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program New Zealand Reborn. Last time, we ended the episode on a brand new mission to Eve, with our 8 astronauts heading all the way from Kerbin to the Purple Planet. And so now we have the Eve Glide and Return Spaceplane 2 in orbit of Eve, rendezvoused with the ISS Herman. And this spacecraft is going to take us all the way from orbit to the surface of Eve, hopefully without major issues, since we did test this one before actually putting crew in it, which is a lot more than can be said for most flights. So we put Jebediah McLaughlin and Henrik Johansson into the cockpit, ready to fly down to the surface.
This is an automated distress call from the Navik 1. Immediate assistance is requested due to severe technical issues. Any and all craft in the vicinity of the planet are requested to send aid before the situation becomes critical. This message will now repeat.
Though we did achieve a successful landing, it appears that the celebrations are going to have to be short-lived because we received this distressing communication from the Indian Space Research Organization's ship that was also sent to Eve, the Navik 1. And the pilots on the Herman are able to deduce that there is enough RCS fuel on board to do the maneuvers that way instead of risking firing the main engines more than its rated ignitions. So, bringing the ships in close together, we can get the pilots out and see about fixing this problem that they have, which we figure out is a issue with the connection between their nuclear engines and the nuclear reactor. These interplanetary ships, of course, are much too large to be able to dock together successfully, but the engineers can perform EVAs to get between both ships. So here we have Bjorn Olsen from the Scandinavian Space Agency getting out on the first EVA, and then we have Dr. Estelle McDermott, one of New Zealand's finest space engineers, and then from the Indian Space Research Organization is Akash Nan, a very accomplished engineer himself. As the two astronaut crews are working together, they surprisingly get along very well during their work fixing the Navik's engines, and the crews return to their ships, coming to the conclusion that perhaps it would be better to put minds together to explore the Kerbal system instead of trying to outdo one another with each other's missions. There are talks that are going to be had about politics back on Kerbin, but until then, the Navik 1 has its departure date reached and burns to escape the orbit of Eve on its way back to Kerbin. But before then, the ISS Herman still has its rendezvous with Gilly to do. So while they're completing that burn to intercept with Gilly, there's actually a complication that needs to be discussed between the crew. Initially, the plan was to have Anthony Kazmarczyk and Estelle McDermott pilot the Evegar 2 to the surface of Gilly, but after some problems with the heating systems on the Evegar 2, it was no longer safe to operate after Jeb and Henrik got back to the ISS Herman, so naturally, we're going to send Jeb down to the surface. There is no other astronaut that has more experience with the EVA jetpacks, and he can do it all by himself. Gilly has low enough gravity that he should have no problem at all getting down to the surface, planting a flag, and raising himself back up into orbit to glide safely back towards the ISS Herman, having once again established himself as the first Kiwi to set foot on another body in the Kerbolar system. But the maneuvers are a little bit tricky to get a hold of, but pretty much we could just burn straight towards the ship to get Jeb on the right track here. So he's able to slow himself down and get up towards the cockpit to let himself back in before the ship needs to prepare for its return to Kerbin. After several long years, the wayward crew finally sees the blue atmosphere of the homeworld come back into view. And after the disaster on the mission to Duna, we decide to rely on good old reliable Zaida series of shuttles to get the crew back to the surface of Kerbin without any major complications. As these are rated to survive re-entries from places as far away as Minmus, so this should go without issue, re-entering the atmosphere, enduring the forces there, before gliding down towards New Zealand to land safely on the surface amongst some of the trees there, narrowly avoiding colliding with one of them, but concluding our several years-long mission to Eve. With the EVE mission complete, the Mission Control can focus its efforts on our Tangaroa 1 probe, which is on its final approach to Neidon after 12 years of transit, which is quite a long time. If you think that's bad, our mission to Pluck still has, I think, 15 years to go, 14, something like that. It's going to be a long time before that one's ready. But the Tangaroa 1 should be able to gather some new data on these unexplored worlds. Images of Neidon and its moons flood the world's media as, after several months of intense deliberation from politicians and space engineers, it's determined that India, Scandinavia, and New Zealand will work together on a joint manned mission to Moho, the innermost planet in the Kerbin system. This has been visited by Scandinavia before, but both New Zealand and India have not actually launched any missions to Moho before now, so there's plenty of data to be gathered from there. What's more, there's a small twist on this mission, as the command pod for the main interplanetary ship also doubles as a surface base to go on the surface of Moho.